on the now, che, Sisu Java in Gilia, and chick, che contribute to Gisaja, Delia, Kushepche, and Lucinema to Devaton Kushipche or yes, but on che again, and Chikia, or Niche, Chick, but Gajo Major Shell, or Fukushima, that the Nichi, your Maria Sage, or Lucinas, then issue her here. Gisadineza, and the Geshe Chengawana, so Koron to Karisnan Gorisne, and Yemlin, Nata Chiki. And Chelia, and Che contribute to Shishabi Tony, and to see him in Angori as a get and Chenakas and Gitish Divo Shirodan.
Good evening. Last week in the presentation on refuge, we came to look at the precepts or the trainings of refuge. And so we came up to those which are to be engaged in relation to the individual Dharma jewels, and we concluded by looking at that of how to relate to the physical representation of the Dharma jewels, the Dharma texts. And there we saw that they should be treated with reverence through understanding the great benefit that they bring to beings. And the illustrations were given, such as that of Geshe Thubten, and who showed through his physical behavior, he expressed his deep, heartfelt respect for the Dharma through understanding its value. So this and other examples were given as examples for us to emulate.
Inezada dini ngiduen nam rabjung ge ta sam zimba la yang mi xie xin mi ye ba tang ane che na ye yi cho xie ri su je ne ane dar ta wa nam ba tham je du mi cha wa giduen kon cho la kon cho giduen kon cho de gu ba che tes.
In the trainings of refuge, or the precepts of refuge, we've looked at those which are to be stopped, so the proscriptive precepts, and now we come to the final of the three for the prescriptive precepts, what is to be accomplished, and that is in relation to the Sangha jewel. So turning to the text, so in the handouts, we're in the middle of page 130, and in the published text, the last paragraph on page 110. You should not abuse or despise the Sangha, or even those who merely bear the signs of ordination, nor should you look at them as some kind of opponents, having made arbitrary divisions in terms of your group and my group. Instead, treat them with respect as if they were the Sangha jewel.
Shebe Tone and the Kidding Gojola, Net Jasutra, and Kidding Gojuita, Jasutra, the Lapcha Laburi says, Agandizi Lamnada, Gideon Nam Sida, Gideon said the Kidding Gojoshe, that Gideon Gojolia, and Jeke, getting Jesu Tempe Tone, and the Kidding Goju Indiana, the Gideon Gojo said, Pape Casa, and the Bron, and Demasan Chimney Digi, Jesuta, Chimney Digi, Sonje, Lamlia. Some Gumsuche, and then Lumie Dusin, Lojanchi, Conjula, Hobby go lam Jura Jetica, Gansare, and Dusin attending some diada, and the Niki Koroji do the number Kundu, Share, and Yamlin Chekalia, and Ziki, until Chalk and Gi Tonea, and Robocheta, and Yamlin Chelia, Tingle, those Chigore, Bemasip, Yapore, Sambi, some dan, delays, Aina. Was Nashin, Gentle Yamlet to Bachigi, Sebe, some time to down to Tushina, some time, Susugita, gave Jawan and Yamle, gone to the chair, getting Gochala, and yet the Lapshala Lapsat disorder then.
The first word in the Tibetan is for us a little further on in the sentence. It's Sangha with a uppercase S. So this refers to the Sangha jewel. So us as Buddhists who have gone to the Sangha jewel for protecting refuge, we have done so through knowing their remarkable qualities. So we've come to really admire and respect the Sangha for what they have achieved. So this So here we are talking about Arya beings, the Arya Sangha, who comprise the Sangha jewel. And they have been, they've attained this status of being Arya beings through having cultivated the wisdom arising from hearing, the wisdom arising from reflection, and the wisdom arising from meditation. And in this way, they've attained the various paths of the Buddha Dharma. And with the attainments of the paths of the Buddha Dharma, they've also achieved the various accompanying incredible qualities. So in this way, one recognizes how remarkable beings, what remarkable beings they are. And the way to relate to them through our training in refuge is to give rise to a genuine aspiration to emulate them, to have them as our role models, to follow in their footsteps, follow their example.
And
therefore, recognizing their great qualities, it would be so inappropriate to, and now the sentence continues, you should not abuse or despise the Sangha.
Andine rabjunge tasam zimba la ya su da kirin go jama je da rabjunge tasam zimba shi da an ju rabjunge chalu chi kwen je ko me ne da tin ko san yi ta san yu che le de ba chin da rabju chalung ko ne da don ba ru su de ne ke song ma tu gen da de ne ke ye jing ya da sho ro wa an de su ne an de su ya kha ta ya da kyun je che ya da ni ju che ji gyo ma re so de su ne de su ya ngu shep che ya da hin chi mi ko ro da 네 상예기야 대화요 바다 상예기 제수 자지미 or 상예기 철로선 진바대 야보레 선비가 섬나제 권리 안도시는 구이바다 제마도 니치 카다야 다 권리 통종 다야 니주시도 시켜 말해스.
So reading the whole sentence, you should not abuse or despise the Sangha, so that's been covered, or even those who merely bear the signs of ordination. So this then refers to those who are ordained but are not included amongst the Sangha jewel, so the ordinary Sangha. So they have willingly received the vows of the ordained due to having deep, heartfelt, trusting faith in the three jewels. And therefore, because of that quality, as well as the quality of the vows on the continuum, the only suitable way to relate to them is one of respect, not to abuse or despise them.
And the Bendigo Divasaru or Sosoya, Divasa and Yawachimalia, and Gangaji, Gusai, Dianzali, and Gucci, Jetan, and Gangali Targo, and the Samakena, and Gangase, Gushago, Jesadiniza, to some Tagio Mares. At the Unity, Corona, Yami on a Sangelia, Deva Yuvata, Sangi, Cheers to charge me, Sanyeki, Nichelu, that Chalo Zimba that. 야보레 선비 코로나 지 코로나 윤된 차들에 윤된 다제 근데 야지 야보레스 배 가고 그러면 저리야 근데 구십 제바이나 이제는 하나 주의 개화사 거로 봐 진짜 니네자 아주 그래 코र्स는 아주 디버사요 말 개화 두고 봐 개화 두고 인자 근데 내기 다선 진바로 통하는 아주야 지게 냥아 친구로 남서 준주시죠 다디 요 말디 지지지자 윤주시 용고로 제가 니네서 디버사로 디자 sab도 체제 근데 다서 진바 통화나 되려야 안도시네 그럼이야 사이에 대바유바데 야보레 선비게 다시 그 대바유로와 대바유바자 대그 대바 제바들 시수이라 제야다 아니 거래야 통좀 마다와 니쉐미셔와 카마다와 대세디 이게체머리에서 올다디 도시네 개령 거전에 접수 좋아인자 근데 랍자 두서 내가 저기 얌는 제고리에서
All ordinary beings have both good qualities and flaws or faults. And this is the case whether these ordinary beings are ordained or not ordained. All ordinary beings have good qualities and faults. And that isn't just talking about those that we perceive, but it also refers to ourselves as the perceiver. We too have good qualities, but we also have faults. This needs to be clearly recognized. And then, through recognizing this, we can also understand by focusing on someone's faults, we will come to see them in an unbalanced way. And if we do so in any context, whether in the context of this presentation or in general, if we focus on someone's faults so that every time we think of them, their faults arise dominant in our mind, this just harms us. Whereas on the other hand, if we focus on the good qualities that others do have, for example, the ordinary Sangha, by focusing on the good qualities they have, one accumulates a virtue. So by training one's mind in this way, particularly in relation to the topic here of the ordinary Sangha, those who bear the signs of ordination, but also more generally, whomever we encounter, if we train our mind so as not to dwell on their faults, but to rather be more aware of their good qualities, our mind will be more at peace. We will accumulate virtue and will avoid non-virtue. And this process of accumulating virtue and avoiding non-virtue is indispensable in order to spiritually develop. The accumulation of virtue, the avoidance of non-virtues, is essential to spiritually develop. Therefore, this refuge precept, in this training of what is to be accomplished, this skillfully serves to ensure that we accumulate virtue and avoid the accumulation of non-virtue, obstacles to our spiritual development. The next sentence from Lama Tsongkhapa is also explicitly about this refuge precept and training our minds in how to relate to the Sangha. But it, of course, should be applied broadly throughout society. Nor should you look at them as some kind of opponents, having made arbitrary divisions in terms of your group and my group. And this is something that we as ordinary people are very prone to do. We divide beings into various groups. So in this context, we'll divide beings into practitioners, into groups of our group and their group, and focus on the good qualities, the perceived good qualities of our group and the perceived faults of the other group. And from this, one will make comments such as, we keep our vows well, or we have vows and they don't. We are ordained and they are not. We engage in these various practices and they do not. We study and they do not. So one divides beings into groups in various ways. And this does not serve our goal of spiritual development. Certainly, all it does is to enhance one's afflictions.
Hene chik Doma Song, Dania, Meka, Sosugi, Ganajiang, Lojan, Yawari, Sempi Dusin, Gushepsi or Hesed, Mato Desulia, and the Kataya, and Gunjia, the Mahawa, and Lanzuma, Konzu Chores, and Mahawa Chichioma, Dijavena, and the Gunjia, and Gidelia, Sharia, Gunjia, and the Tibachimo Sagores, that did divide Susumam, Gavachima, Sonic, Tichiomares, a Gushepsi, Davachi, Jesu Irache. Nichi 야월이 되었다 나이나 소소의 개화사고에서 지상한 주기다 초조 발생 개화 초탐지는 조반자 지상 기준 권을 접수 도와자 두시네 아니 라렌타 되게 두시체 오래서 좀
Talking about TikTok.
권정 그 버체에 세대
Super.
디바담
Super chat by. The training then is, again, not to focus on perceived faults, but rather to focus on perceived good qualities. And furthermore, rejoice in the good qualities of others. So in the case of ordained, ordained or non-ordained, but here it's specific to the Sangha Jewel, but to the precepts relating to the Sangha Jewel, but we should take it more broadly too. So we should rejoice in the vows that others have. We should rejoice in their Dharma studies, whether their studies are deep and in-depth or more superficial or more introductory. And likewise, whatever form of practice they do, rejoice in that. Here, and this then is emphasized in the final sentence, where Lama Tsongkhapa says, instead, treat them with respect as if they were the Sangha Jewel. Here we're being encouraged to train our mind in focusing on the good qualities of others. This then serves to bring us together, to ensure there are not artificial divisions between people and between groups. On the other hand, if we construct divisions and we focus on perceived faults in others, then this criticism, this looking down upon, serves no good purpose. And in fact, it just leads to accumulation of non-virtue and the further suffering, even potentially rebirth in the lower realms. Rather, recognize all beings want to be happy, and they are trying in accordance with their own karmic imprints. Rather, focus on the good that beings are achieving, praise them, and don't let your mind dwell on any perceived faults.
아니네 자당을 지위견 하야디 레라고르시 아니 인데 타야디 인데 페저들이 인데 여바이네 인데 타야디 페 되스칼레 하고레 아니 게로 춘주 토베나 남상한 저 어다디도세 가칭하다 항상한테 윤제시야라 용거를 받아가지고 지소난다가 저기 랍중이네레 니 김배나로이네레 부도시나 저기 인데 타야디 되스 통과와나 아니 견에서 춘주르시네 남사 아니 견하야데 길에라 우용거라 되네자 되슬이야 도시나 삽삽치는 도시체고래 사실 총을 이단당은 전주나로 송만하시 네 샘송고래 시디 샘 영모부 쇼소 송 전시신데 송고래서 디소에 지발 디소 전시신데 다 donang도 지바 체고 재산 전다 전바의 시신데 이제 소수의 삼노에 밀리아 견주시야다 되네기 지 수리야 지 포인트 남사 견주시야다 되네기 통정하야다 되네기 삼노 되면 삼다 되네 코나 어디디 코요 말에서 무슨 소리야 다 근데 코로나 연대로시 시신이 코로나 연대 여바티에 안다체네 어디디네기 연대 여디 야고레서 어도시네 저게 지수이라 지야다 누구십시오 이래서데 두수이되다 뭐저게 냠렌치리 갑라 가와있는 전시신데다 무슨 송바있네 마송바있네 되네 고야디 기침을 지바래 가와있네.
So it's all too easy to focus on the faults of others. And it can be quite difficult to see the good qualities in some. So here I encourage you to really take this precept, this training to heart, and certainly apply it in the way that's taught here in this context, but also take it far more broadly and relate it to everyone, whether ordained or non-ordained, whether Buddhist, non-Buddhist, relate it to everyone. And at all times, be careful with your mind. Utilize the two close companions of the meditator, mindfulness and vigilance. At all times, watch your mind. And when you see it going in a negative direction towards someone, immediately stop yourself. Remind yourself, all beings want to be happy. May all beings be happy. This particular person I'm thinking about through the lens of their faults, perhaps they have these faults, but they also have many good qualities. And actively remind yourself of their good qualities and rejoice in their good qualities and the causes that they accumulated to have those good qualities. And have the good qualities of others dominant in your mind, whomever you interact with. In this way, you'll be able to relate to others with genuine respect, tenderness, and care. To bring about this change, as well as all other developments of the mind, rely on mindfulness and vigilance. Guard mindfulness and vigilance. Ensure they are always present. And in this particular context, ensure one's mind does not dwell on the faults of others, but rather their good qualities.
나디네 라섬 굴와레스 연된 되바 나나 네바이 하루다게 윤나 따미자 다니 제브르 파시한 다 초지 대념도니 셈게미자 오스 네 야디 밤에 군ye 자와디 결론매래 니에버르 용미자 가와지 타바 투미규 디니 템바 딜라고리 딜라고리 민 셰송소스.
Now, Lama Tsongkhapa quotes from the exhortation to the extraordinary attitude. Those who dwelling in forests desire excellent qualities should not look for faults in other people. They should not produce the attitude, I am especially noble, I am the best. This haughtiness is the root of all carelessness. Don't let contempt for lesser monks arise, or else you won't reach liberation for an eon. This is a training stage. This is a training stage in this teaching.
The Indian Depa, Nana never ye, Nana the Indian Goma Havardu, you can India Goma Kumbedi Keg and Dalia, Namansuki, Topocula Keg and Dalia, Denegi, the Chi, me, Embi, near Na, that's of a nation, then you come Capniam Chevi, Jerry Kavlas or Denegi. 제리가 가사디 이 제리가가 안에 바로 되게 꽤나 담비자지 현대기 꽤인지기 바 3단계 말에서 현대기 꽤나 바로 되고 견디도 어디고 디치미도 어디니 시도 와서 꽤나 바 3단계 말에서
So look in the first two lines, those who dwelling in forests. So this refers to people living in either in monasteries and nunneries or in remote areas such as forests. What it refers to is those who are serious about their practice. In other words, they are striving to develop good qualities in themselves. Hence, the line ends with desire excellent qualities. So this isn't expressing a mere aspiration for excellent qualities, but they are striving to develop them. The warning is down the second line, should not look for faults in other people. So this is guarding against the mind of criticism, of actively looking for faults, or looking for them, and or if they arise in the mind, dwelling on them. This should be avoided.
고지 제 냠내 지금도 홀로전 지금도 선배게 단지 되네게 저 도시는 제바지 도시다와이나 안 되네게 사상디게 통용을 했어. 통용도 안에 소설이야. 어다디 건설을 견제시하게. 다 건설로전 지금도 건설 검제금도 건설에 최대 되면도 안지 어도시는 견제시야 삼리용을 해셔죠. 지난 바로 다 견나 담에서 견 따와이는 된중거리에서 되네게 감사 原去那用的安德的军事些个三八的，很多些呢，这通常大个什么类目的些。
One can imagine the kind of criticisms someone who's serious about their practice may make of others around them. They may well say, "Oh, they're not striving for calm abiding. They're not abiding in retreat like I am. They haven't studied well like I have. They're not engaging in serious meditation like I am." So in this way, criticizing, pointing out faults in others, either in comparison to oneself or just for whatever other reason, criticizing others, looking down on others, this is to be avoided.
나니 케브르 파신 다 초지스 제자들이 삼다이도 다 소소한 가르치는 나니 케브르 앞에야 위 공나 검적이 나 냠는 지고 나 참지고 나 비에시고 하고 있습니다. 나 콘술에 약속나 이제 다 초도 나는 케브르 봐봐 콘술에 나 케브르 봐봐 나 냠는 약부치 나 검 약부치 제 콘술에 나 약화 진짜 너 정하뒤 나 약속을 하셨습니다. 두 삼다이도这样这个的假话些的结果，而且啥的假话些的结果，还是啥的呢？啥的牛毛把的，还是我打你开不了发现，他就接是呢，工作来带着工作来跟着，工作这个俺被后面会员，俺工作来开不了爸爸伊，俺工作来原的桥，俺工作那个桥头就把意思说人面前，所以这个原的就是在人面前，那的呢，俺那个说呀，假话些结果还是的牛毛把的还是。Third
line. For us, as a fourth line. I'm especially noble. I am the best. So this is just an illustration of the kind of thinking that one perhaps won't have explicitly, but it would be underlying there, because when we criticize others, it tends to come with an attitude of regarding oneself as superior in the context of what they are being criticized, what we are criticizing them for. So if one is criticizing someone else for not having studied well, this is because one feels you have studied better, or criticizes someone for not meditating well, it's because you feel you're meditating better. So this is an expression of haughtiness to come in a couple of lines. Haughtiness is one of the secondary afflictions. So here, what this practitioner is doing is from their own afflicted mind, they are criticizing others. This is deeply, deeply hypocritical.
Samtangyo kiyo mare, sim kiyo mare, kiyo mijawo. So dinegi, den sheshin denje, dine samlo de kiyo tuye mindo, dine ba sheshin jeba je, an kiyo ba, hago yudu lamsa, an tembe tsinchen, diso semjike, dine samlo de korchu yo mare, esi orta.
The fourth line, for us the third line, they should not produce this attitude, or the attitude. So here, the encouragement is to rely on mindfulness and vigilance, using vigilance to always be aware of the mind. And when we see an affliction arising, in this context, arising as criticism of others, of dwelling on faults of others, immediately re-energize your mindfulness, remind yourself of the faults of this affliction of haughtiness, and return to your object of meditation. This is important to do.
rangi yunden chunse shile miye shelia and chapel to power somebody na le hang na ya shore na chapel power somebody di samlo di japa si ore dai ji shen le miye Shengi and they all call me she Miduati, call me no some big, call of John, question me, call an I somebody. I think I guess you, I guess you. They did in nigga some of the year, Chen Chiglia, the Shengi, Yun, the call Yun did the call Yun did Naya some sometimes call it Toncho had it, they go to watch as I did, Naya. Rangi Yun did the look, I Yun the Yago call and I agree sometimes do the new and I joined then shower some chick the nigga to Toncho died, the young Japasi which I got it.
This is so easy to do. It's something we tend to be deeply habituated to. So this is a habituation one needs to stand up and challenge. So it's all too easy to look at faults in others and criticize them for that fault. So this then is an expression of the mind of pride, where you're looking down at someone, criticizing them. Another way this is often expressed is you'll perceive a fault in someone and criticize them, and also think to yourself, I wouldn't do that, or I do that, I would have done it so much better. This is then haughtiness. The difference being with haughtiness, with this affliction, one is perceiving one's own good quality as superior to what one is perceiving in someone else, or one is perceiving one's own good quality as superior to what you're perceiving in someone else. So you're still looking down on them, but it's from this lofty height of I am better. Whereas pride doesn't necessarily have this and I am better, but pride certainly is expressed as looking down on others by focusing on their faults.
Guerrero, Boba said, Susu, Boba said, Suzuki, Shingbi, and then de la Mi, Shell Tonjomata, Kimban Batch, Suzuki, Shingbi, and then de la Mi, some Dutch, Social, or Danny Shingu, may the Yahweh, Mara Shingu, Yahweh, Ding, Shingbadi, may shall I share in a Gama Cheme, Sosu in Yamaja, Chasa, Shingu is in Big that, Boba Shurva, the Susu go over the Boba Sigur. Chisandelia, Naja, and Yabas and Boba said, the story the 2 years in Haranzi, Boba than Nayan, 2 years in I was them. Naya said, Shengi Chula meets in the collia that you call it in I agree to collia Tonjo dying some labor. Boba said, Susuki and some other Ayahui, maybe Sheba than Karchevin and not to young body, Mitachi Tugres and be so then social or the Boba Sigon. He answered to go over there.
So these two, pride and haughtiness, are afflicted, and we should be on guard against them. They serve to separate us from others, as well as accumulating virtue, non-virtue. But there's another mind that one can confuse this with, and this is a worthwhile mind to have, and that is a mind of self-confidence. There's nothing wrong in recognizing one's own good qualities, but there is no need to see oneself as therefore superior to others. One may recognize, yes, in this field, I have knowledge and education that someone lacks, or I have skills that someone lacks. You can make this difference, which may well be valid between yourself and others. And as long as this is free from looking down on others, or criticizing others, then this is just the mind of self-confidence. It's in accordance with reality, and it is good to have. So this should not be confused with minds such as pride and haughtiness. Self-confidence is both in accordance with reality, that one actually does have this quality, and it is free of looking down on others, criticizing others.
di bame kunyi zawari patel bame ki ese tanga zuge bame soso gi shengi soso gi yender nga pe ya bo konzole de nga ya ga sem tushin ya bo re sem soso gi dini nga ya ke yodi dene bame le gi ese bame si de shen ya ane chigi chue ane kar so re yebi ge jawari chebala mesemba chunguru wa dene mesemba 어다 진이 잼반다 진이 지금 말에 선바디로다 지체나 지금 말에 선면 쟁거로와 이 소주는 지금 말에 선반 소주는 쟁거로와 이나신 제자다 나예래요도 젤야 축습시야 셴레야 안데 이제 니주체야 안데네게 셈파 묘모비 밤에 묘모비 쇼소 다치네 라마라디 용구리 해서 제산 밤에 싸워를 했어 얘를 잡아텔에 되네 밤에 기용을 해서 밤에 구이 싸워됐어
Quote continues, this haughtiness is the root of all carelessness. So this translation, carelessness, here is non-conscientiousness. Non-conscientiousness is a mind that is the opposite of being conscientious. It's when one is, So for example, when minds such as pride, or not for example, in this context, when minds such as haughtiness or pride arise, these lead to one not being conscientious. In that, haughtiness and pride are afflictions. Afflictions, if one is conscientious, is on guard against the afflictions, recognizing they are never appropriate. Haughtiness, its companion pride, are never appropriate. If one is conscientious, one will know this. One will therefore rely on mindfulness and vigilance to ensure that these afflictions do not arise. So when afflictions such as haughtiness or pride arise and dominate, and then one follows through from this arisal of afflictions and criticizing others, dwelling on their faults in your mind, one's mind now is afflicted. It's non-virtuous. This, as a practitioner of the Dharma, is clearly inappropriate. And from being lacking conscientiousness, one may well engage in further non-virtue. So we need to be on guard for the rise of afflictions such as haughtiness.
and 지게 셴기 집직도와 기시나 될야 안 지구로 맞아봐지 당래 맞아봐 파 통조 다야기 되네 삼몽불리그로와 제가 되네기 단 밤에게 삼몽불리용 에사시 숨을 받아 진해야이 지용으로 하다
What non-conscientiousness does is it sees afflictions as suitable, as justified in this context. This lack of conscientiousness leads to the justification of, so it's an actual mind called non-conscientiousness. So it's not merely a lacking. So non-conscientiousness leads to a justification of the afflictions, not necessarily in general, but in this instance. So with non-conscientiousness present, one believes that this affliction, perhaps haughtiness, perhaps another, is justified in this circumstance. And this then is likely to lead to harmful behavior or harmful speech. And in this way, one's non-virtue is amplified, and one also directly brings harm to others.
가와지 타바 토미기로스 지난 디니기 소수기 타바 토야기 요거를 토야기 지네 디니기 삼타이드 뇨모버기의 뇨모버디 바르주 제체네 안디네 타바 토비야네 균요보 고그리에서 얼마 균요보 고그리에서 근데 가와라서 고그리에서 가와지게 타바 토미니오스 디니기 가와지라서 거기 바지 야야 네 선음 사고여기 디니 되지네 선음 사고여 차기에서
Buddhism and
Tenegi Keno Shana Nijun Ajaji, Niju, Tongju, Chen, Dibu Chimbosago, Chizan Keno Tabatoyalia, and Gawachilo, so by Tabatoi, Tan Gores, Chizan deeper the Anjadi, Sunam Diniki Tabatoya, and Sunam Sadi, Unibu, Sunam Sadi, Ojigi, Eswoda, Gawaji, Tabatomius.
Verse.
Timberland Modata to win it, I'm going to the Chizina Ligorua. Tine Colloquial show by the Colloquial Chevaja to go out in it. Choosing you are the choose his course in Guru and they choose his Guru and in as his wood to look Chavua.
Verse continues. Don't let contempt for lesser monks arise. So this follows on from what's been said above, that due to the arisal of afflictions such as haughtiness, pride, etc., one engages in criticizing one's fellow practitioners. One engages in criticizing those who, just like you, wish for happiness. So this is clearly non-virtuous, and due to this non-virtue that one is accumulating, the next line, or else you won't reach liberation for an eon. Through this non-virtue, one's spiritual development is greatly impeded. And therefore, one needs to make even a longer effort for an even longer period to try and accumulate the merits because of this non-virtue that one is accumulating. So, for example, if you're going on a journey, perhaps driving down to Melbourne, normally takes a couple of hours. But if you have a puncture along the way and you don't have a spare tire and you have to call roadside assistance, you'll be waiting a while. Instead of this 2-hour journey taking that long, it may end up taking 4 hours. So this is similar. So through criticizing others, in particular in this context, those who too are making efforts in accordance with their capacity, to criticizing them serves no good purpose, but in fact hinders one's own spiritual attainment.
That in a young as some Nalia, or that indicate your marriage, you teach your some song you do. Jigo, that coron no do a carriage in a collier robot, Jika Maji to she, and Jaja could say some big some diagramma. Could not do a chunguina, Colliada, Ejigar's house, could you chonet diagramma, and then chonet Daji Delia, and a cuship chair down, and she's with a chivo is that one. That you should have told you the Kojuan Tona, that Mahon Doge, that Delia, Jash and the Jiggins at the same beginning, that's some Kurua. As well. They
up to Bendigo, some up to can after
that is what is Larua. And on this some kind of coolness in the corner and dog has agreed. That Pacha de la Gunju and I call a Gunji Mahon Doge Shash and the Jago inside the same big some Kurua, didn't matter. Gunj Tomba in that Tolia, Gunju Maja, but you call you Nagasode, Gunju chair down Kolia, Nangjoda, to do. 业界嘛这把钱，过捐的通吧呢，过捐的刚刚的社推给他们主要吧呢，我都过来也人节，但我呢过是刚刚读过人节身边三大，过三大新闻都过牛肉桥的人节身边个，过来偏偏身边过年垃圾，然后过来过刚刚写的，过这个脑推的一把，这边他们去过的嘛的，而且过这些说的过业界大澳的过新闻的过牛肉桥的这些法，通常的捐助其实要嘛的也是我的。 마도 콜리아 로고 마시 송고 마다야 같이 소수기 탑람다 톱시 로봇에 톱시 여바이나 콜리아는 닝지에 셈베 코너 두샤스 콜 강아도 그 닝지에 거 신경면 셈베 나디 파 닝지에다 햄베 셈베 군에 나제 코너 두딜레 파 삼다다다 마신바 디슬리 파 안치게 로 신마시바 셰바 수야다 강아에세 탑람디 코로 제고 워로 다원도 만저 그 고급 중요하다 소수기 뉴바다 되는 경우가 많아. 아직 삼론날 오다디직 그런 규제 대교 말고 니시교 마스 딱고 교인가지 강하는 두삼마다지 딘마다지 연내자야 다지 콜리아 남매 샤워서 선비기 제시를 말해.
이 담아다른 높아야 이제 담아다른 고성. The training as you've heard, comes down to this. When we perceive faults in others, don't dwell on them. Rather, seek out their good qualities and train your mind so that when you see someone or they come to mind, that they come to mind with their good qualities rather than perceiving them through the lens of their faults. So this is the training. When one hears this, a thought that may well come. But does this mean that their faults are okay? Are we, in a sense, approving of their faults? So this, of course, is not the case. Rather, the training is that we should not criticize others. We may well perceive faults, and these faults they may well have. But them merely having faults is no reason, no justification for us to wag a finger, to complain about them to others or even to ourselves. Ordinary beings have faults. To that point or that far, one accepts. Those doesn't make those faults acceptable or laudable, but one should not criticize others. Rather, one should use your wisdom and understand that they want to be happy, but due to these faults, their development of happiness is impeded. And generate a mind of compassion, yearning, may they work through these faults. May they become free of these faults. A skillful practitioner, when seeing faults in others, will not only not criticize them, but genuine compassion for the suffering being will arise, recognizing that this person only wants to be happy. And moreover, a skillful practitioner, in response to this arisal of genuine compassion, will reach out a hand of help, striving to try to help in accordance with their own ability and the relationship they have with the other person. This is an appropriate response. Nowhere in there is there criticism, is there looking down on. Rather, there's a feeling of closeness, of tenderness, and with such a relationship, one extends a helping hand. So this is how a skillful practitioner relates to the faults in others. They certainly do not look down from lofty heights as some exalted practitioner. This is just deeply hypocritical. So this is the training. We must guard our mind, ensure that we are, in this regard, genuine practitioners.
나 디니 템바딜라 고르미스 다 디니 세디 제자다 안주에 건조숨나 겹소도 건조숨나 되게 심바로 스타보 그 동안에 탈되게 삼바기 딜레큐베 니보 건조숨나 요래 세비게 이시체 디니 건조숨이 껴버게 심비 건조숨 겹소도 디니 겹소도네 디니 건조숨이 겹들 랍자라 랍 두시드림 바체 랍 디니 매종 어두스네 되네 잠니죠kom 되네 장쇼 셈게 와노서 두시네 사이 템바 델이야 냠는지게 림바 두스에스 지상 원마 단당보는마 인장들마 납두스 림바 겹로 겹소도 겹로지 되네 겹로 납자라 납 두신 되네 매종kom 되네 매종게 되네 안 잠니죠kom 잡아지면 쉬 냠는제반은 잠바데 니죠kom 되네 안에 장쇼 셈 곰 다시 셈게 되네 파진 중에 냠라는 도신 고렘 되네 시림바 신의 냠을 제야디 상기 템바 냠는 지기 림바티리 고렘 되리시에 마도 고렘 되네 메바지 고렘 림바 당보드 라고데 말라바지 안 아신 제게 저거 약쇼디 디제스는 랍되바이나 에네 베네 지 cam로 다 두서 cam 랍자라 기니 장도라다 cam로 제야다 cam로 랍자 기니 마제 아니 냠네 마제 되네 예종고 말은 예종고 돼야지 어여 용구가 말해서 제사도 당보 cam로 제야다 되는 예종고 가소래 cam로 랍샬라 랍된 도신 예종고 고래서 제사 예종 먹어 봐지 안다 잠니제 먹으면 자주심 제야고 되겠네 자주심 기기 말해서 제사 코너 림바시지 고름신도 그런 게 좀도 진라고 해야 돼. 라비에도 라고 그래. 제사 산이 템바 냠랭이 똑바길래 개발라. 근데 좀바티 도시나 산이 관심만 앵이 코발랭이 좀 가서 탈되게 삼바게 딜레기베 네바 관심도 여봐. 하와제. 얘네 관심이 교거리 샘백게 관심나 접수주에 잠로제. 얘네 접수주는 안 잡을 납샤는 파도 슬랍제. 도신 냠네 제좀 받친 쪽 그래서 this nyamne jibe rinpati ni she sache. Dine tenpati ka kore minse she song sosa.
The quotation concludes with, this is a training stage in this teaching. What this refers to is we are now progressing through this topic on refuge, which started with the first outline of the causes for going for refuge, which came about through having reflected on the sufferings of the lower realms and a fear having arisen, recognizing I have accumulated the causes that can potentially lead to such a rebirth for me again. And then, that's the first cause. The second cause is recognizing that the three jewels have the capacity to guide me to transform my mind sufficiently to gain protection from falling to the lower realms. So this is the first training within this topic, the causes of refuge. Thereafter, we came to reflect on the objects of refuge, so the three jewels themselves. Thereafter, we looked at the way for going for refuge, which included looking at the qualities of the various jewels. And now we come to the precepts or trainings of refuge. So this is an indispensable training, and we need to train in this stage, in this teaching. We should not miss this stage of training. In other words, the trainings of refuge. We should not miss these. If we rather run after what we are drawn to, perhaps the attainments of the mind of bodhicitta we find compelling, or the realization of emptiness we find compelling, and we rush off to that, the problem we'll have is the foundation is not developed. Therefore, those later stages will not come about. So we have to train in this stage, in this teaching. This teaching refers to the entire graduated path. So training well here in refuge will ensure that when we hear the next stage of training, that of the suffering of the higher realms, then our cause of refuge will grow in strength. And this will give us the capacity required to generate definite and transformative definite emergence, which it itself is an indispensable prerequisite for actual bodhicitta. So therefore, one has to train in the correct sequence of trainings. Otherwise, one will just be gathering imprints, but not radically transforming one's mind.
Lama tamban koma namji na nyamsu kane kan limba gore sa dini le na tusine ta nyamsu le na de shu korte ene Geshe Thubten da nunju ba chimbe hamba sebori gombe sar yoba yang mi gomber jugne ne zang sar gebege calendar lapdes.
Then Lama Tsongkhapa continues by giving examples of some remarkable practitioners. Geshe Thubten and Dorje Chinpo, instead of stepping over a piece of yellow material on the ground, would shake it and carry it to a clean place. You should train in accordance with their practices, for others will respect you as much as you respect the three jewels.
Nen Geshe Thubten da ne job chimo koron juge kare sang ne te lamga du study kabla dinige re sebo chunjung ro ta ma bo da sebo chunju diwa chil lamga diwa surdi wa yibana yang ze ne dine komba ja sha dingala komba ja ji project ro on konju gi dine ma ro che ka so komba ya se ye de ye ba da komba ma je ba chi chu ya ru je an pa sa sang ma chi ya du sin ya go res
These great practitioners, when they saw a piece of fabric with the colors of the ordained, so red or yellow, they would not just ignore it or look the other way as if they had not seen it, but rather, as it says, they pick it up, dust it off, and put it in a clean place.
And in Garjian Shagorisina, a crown to you can Tulia Kargongosn, Chesa Sanye Chesota, Sanye Timber Chimney Digan Namse, Isha di Jesota and Kindu, the Yiki and the Durotia Kargongos, Selvota, Namavota, the Nigger Sel Kong Chu and Benza, the Nigger H. Continental, Tamsan Kinungo Chogi, and Kinungo Chogi, 제 상계다 기둥 거 제제 데니기 제세고 관한테 기둥 상이 지수 잡혀 기둥 거 어떻게 개념되게 추고래 제가 데니에자 개념세 마시기 알스네 상이기 탈바 동안세게 탑람 람님리 지바 된디바 네 심제 탐제래 판도 제야리야 잠니지 검제 상요공 투바 지고래 시벨라님리 지바 된바텔이야 상계리 대바제 상계리 지수 상계기 지수 장지 코로주기 둘로 데니기 둘로 마세 취해지네 냠면난 거래 데네 사디 기능세 뱀마시 제게 제기 야고래 선 데니기 대바제제 아니 기둥이 꾀진 지수 전바단 기둥이 대바제제 데니기 데니기 기능이 쉬어야게 되네 세버지 데식 세버지네 데니기 람사 데니기 지수 담배 기둥이 연전 전바단 기둥이 꾀진 지수 전바 기둥이는 데니기 냠는 제발라 지수 이랑을 통해 데니기 레티 파 룹신 파 도신의 샤고 레시의 샤비 김제디 데니
What needs to be understood from this is what they were showing is nothing like they're not showing respect for cloth or the respect for the dye of the cloth, but rather what it represents, which is the Sangha jewel. So for great practitioners, they have a deep appreciation for the three jewels. So when they see a sign of, in this instance, the Sangha jewel, what will arise within them is a deep respect for those who have spent lifetimes striving for the benefit of sentient beings, first having developed definite emergence and then actual bodhicitta, and as bodhisattvas striving to develop their bodhicitta further, and as well as their wisdom realizing emptiness, eventually coming to realize emptiness directly, and thereby becoming an Arya being. So with deep respect for what these practitioners have done, the dyed cloth that represents them leads to seeing this leads to the rise of a genuine mind of deep faith. And one would imagine that in their mind, they would spontaneously praise the qualities of such beings. So that is the basis for them, in this instance, picking up the piece of cloth, dusting it off, and placing it somewhere high and respectful.
데니기 차례는 랍디스 콘수도스 난거래 당아즈이네 아는 콘수도스 나와나시 달람가도 라제세와 담마고를 통해들음 사대하 룹제 강원 데니기 기둥과 저기 상예된 기둥과 저기 안에 구성도 연된 제다 안에 데니기 대바지에 다 도시나다 네 지기야 룹제 콘수 나신제도 세월에 사지 송고로한테 차례는 랍디스 콘수기도 나와 나중 알서이나 디나신제 야면 제고래서 네 하고도 디위에 도에나 카브레리아 다디 직 다쇼 뭐다에도 어디네 디네 천천히 디나는 이기도와 대자다 남가티와 수제 직마 어디다 지루잖아봐도 디네게 같이 권차 단계 된 거저기 최권적이 계신 지수 전바의 연대 전비团에 룹지파 한전의 상설 작업에 예치 못 작업을
Lama Tsongkhapa continues, you should train in accordance with their practice. Lama Tsongkhapa has then intentionally included their examples to inspire us to emulate that. But what we are being particularly encouraged to emulate is not merely the physical behavior. In the same way that Geshe Thubten and Neljorpa Chimpo weren't doing this because they were told to do it. They're doing it as an expression of the genuine respect and faith that arose in their mind when thinking of the qualities of the Sangha jewel. This is what we are being encouraged to emulate. So for around here, one's probably not going to very often see pieces of robes in the bush, but one may well see pieces of prayer flag. So when one sees that, this response is appropriate. There it has the words of the Dharma on it. Maybe just be a few phrases or just a few words, but still calling to mind what the Dharma represents, that it is the method by which freedom is attained, and those who've cultivated it within have attained freedom. With that in mind, one will readily reach down, pick up the pieces of prayer flag, and then treat them appropriately. Lama Tsongkhapa concludes with, "For others will respect you as much as you respect the three jewels." The respect that's being referred to here is a respect that comes through having gone through the meditations presented, through reflecting on the qualities of the three jewels, leading to a deep and sincere respect for them arising. And this respect creates the causes to be respected, because just like in society, if we don't show others respect, we are not likely to be respected in return. So in this context then, by creating such causes, by having genuine respect for the three jewels, through those causes, others will respect us. And why this is required, is if others hold us in genuine respect, particularly when we ourselves have developed into developed practitioners, we can then be of benefit to them. Our interactions with them, our words, will carry weight and will have an impact on them. In this way, we can have meaningful interactions with others.
아니 제수 템비 게진 제수 템바 연대 토야단 대바가지 슈체번 소소 선남치에 사용으로 담아져 소소 선남치에 사용도 소소 선남 관계 현지 라레 구셰다 대바기인데 디게 랑기야 콘솔레 람드 냠나 이진바데 콘돌레 반부 야침보 두투로 대사다 이니게 제바이나 아니 소소리야 구셰까지 체와 등기 제알이야 햄바 야침보 두투아지 뭐로 제사시에 계시 두투로
So keep this explanation of the purpose of there being a requirement for to be respected. Keep this in mind, because it comes up sometimes in the text, and it's not always manifestly clear. The benefit of being respected by others is not so as to enhance one's pride and to finally be recognized for all one's qualities. Rather, when others hold you as a genuine practitioner, when they hold you in high regard, your words of advice, your guidance will have an impact on them. And in this way, through them having genuine respect for you, they'll be open and receptive to what you have to say, and they'll be wanting you to guide them in how to train their mind. And this is the very purpose of our spiritual development, is to be of benefit to all beings. So this is the benefit of being respected. And how this comes about, to be more precise, is that for you yourself, developing a genuinely respectful attitude, as has been presented here tonight in quite a broad way, but certainly towards the three jewels, one accumulates great merit. Great merit leads to a rapid advancement of our own spiritual development. Our own spiritual development is the attainment of good qualities, and those good qualities will be evident to others. Therefore, they will see us as suitable of their respect. So this is how us having genuine respect for the three jewels in particular, but more generally relating to others in the way described tonight, will lead to us accumulating merit, which aids our spiritual development and our attainment of actual good qualities, which will be evident to others. And Lama Tsongkhapa concludes with a quotation from the King of Concentration Sutras. Whatever kinds of actions you have done, those kinds of effects you will obtain. And the meaning is that if one engages in wholesome actions, that creates the causes for wholesome results. And if one engages in unwholesome actions, it creates the causes for unwholesome results. If our mind is afflicted, and whether these afflictions just torment us mentally, or whether through this torment we express ourselves verbally or physically, we are creating causes for further suffering. So this would be an illustration of actions, whether mental, physical, or verbal, that would create the causes of suffering. So as we've heard tonight, if minds such as haughtiness or pride or harmful intent, attachment arise, we need to deal with them, because these are the causes for suffering. And the way to deal with them is to strengthen our habituation to wholesome ways of thinking, such as ethical restraint, love, compassion, wisdom, and so forth, and ensure that we turn our mind through mindfulness and vigilance, ensuring that they remain dominant. And that when we think of others with respect, with kindness, with care. And in this way, we create the causes for happiness. Moreover, in particular, if one strives in the training of refuge here, and then builds on what we'll come to over the months to come, cultivating the further causes required to develop definite emergence, and then if one focuses also on the wisdom realizing emptiness on the basis of definite emergence, one is creating the causes that will lead to liberation from cyclic existence, freedom from suffering. And if one adds to that, starting with our training here in refuge, adding to that the trainings that are yet to come and that will lead to the attainment of definite emergence, add to that then bodhicitta, as well as the wisdom realizing emptiness. This way, those are the actions that will lead to the eventual effect of Buddhahood.
Geshe Yaborashena, and Pajadi, Sumda, Geshe Yaboshe, Suyunguris, Susugi, Dong Nabot, Margaret Nabeton, Sixurashena, and Sule, Nagawin Nabeton, Susushan, Yunguris said, in a good Chunjoji, some Davana, Denishi, Jirabe, Lecheva, Tibetan, Toba, Yuru said, and Dinerva. Dinajin Anzudatic, Chi $2, some Davana, it's Sawe, Yahuji, Yahu, Sawe, Yahush Davana, indeed, they would have Yahushada. 7 这个愿把它这个要没把它嘛，对不对？要没呀，的那个每一7大部分对不每判断有些，如果是7大部分对不对？都这个那都是这样的，其他的那个有些用过了，那这记者会理解吧？对不对？用有些的就跟什么当他给用么不？这个这个这边的对不懂啊？用过的，的。给我主办的第一步，这些用过的设计，那这些学办那些的其他的。
This quotation from the sutra is relevant for those whose mind haven't turned to the Dharma, who are still focused on the affairs of this life. So for them, focused on the affairs of this life, if they engage with others with a genuine good heart, treat others with care and kindness, they will have good relationships with others, and their mind clearly is happier, and their relationships with others will be wholesome. Whereas if someone takes out their bad moods on others, people are going to be fearful and apprehensive around them, and they will struggle to have good relationships. So likewise, just from the perspective of this one life, whatever kinds of actions you do, those are the kinds of effects you will receive. And this is the case also in our material world. As those who garden, you'll know, if you want a particular plant to grow, you need the right soil, the right seed, the right other conditions in terms of moisture and heat, and only then will one get the results one requires. All the causes are necessary. So too, if one is ill, and one receives medical advice, we know for that medical advice to work, one has to receive it and then follow it. Only then can it work. But here, the context is not about this life. The context is about the choice of remaining bound in suffering due to our afflictions, or attaining freedom from our afflictions, and thereby freedom from suffering. That is what the choice is about. These are the kinds of actions that we both need to refrain from and engage in.
la kukuries. Dinashim, that made Lama Commandamji, Eneki, Hambachunju, Semasa, Toin, Tenelia Malcombat, Tesuya Kusun, Kilin, Kuson to you, and ticket, Jesu Tanch, Delia, Nichisu Iraji, and Deva Cheje, Tisuba Dusin, and then Sasasa the Charge, Chad to Nangora, Dinashing Adrinea, and then Dinikit Hoy and Lamsa, the Simlia, Kedun Conjo to get Jan, Kedun Conjugi, Kuson to you, and Delia, and Deva Jan. Chisu Irache Duchin, Cheguri Essage. Sitan Susurangi, Gelia, Conjola Deba Chada, Conjolia, and a Kusun Yundin Debacase, Cheva, Jeba Zamyi, and Shengi Aralia, Gushap Chegures, and a Gushe over the Rangi, Shele, Pandore, Pemba, Jashimoto toward Essage. In the other Rangi, Ye Yapochevana, Dite Yapochungore Essage, or Duchin, that do Duchin. Ni yabochi he tinaji mazulia semlia dus changdor che chen xixin denche dine ga yongji yong ji tuyege du xin che yanyam le che wo le sa chi na ji sum wo da.
We summarize tonight the precept or the training to adopt. In other words, what we should be training ourselves in order to make our refuge powerful within, is that in relation to the Sangha, these great practitioners, we should certainly focus on their many good qualities, not their perceived faults. And whilst it's imperative one does this for great beings that are included in the Sangha, we should also do so for the ordinary Sangha, as well as, in fact, for all ordinary beings. Train our mind to perceive the good qualities in others, and not to dwell on the faults of others or to criticize others. So this is important. And furthermore, what we saw from the example presented was that when we should show respect to the signs of the ordained, so in the same way as presented. And this should be done from a position not merely of doing it because it's in the text, but coming from as a result of our prior meditations on the remarkable qualities of the Sangha jewel, so that when one sees the signs of the Sangha jewel, through that respect, one would act in such a way. Now, the final point to take into our own practice is it's imperative that we strive to abandon critical minds, complaining minds, negative minds towards others. This only hurts us. And in our relations with others, it harms that. Rather, we should develop a genuine respect for everyone, because everyone has good qualities, and it's those good qualities that we have respect for. And by focusing on the good qualities in others, and thereby interacting with others with their good qualities in mind, we'll have good relations with others. We'll be harmonious with them. Then from the perspective of the spiritual practitioner, having good relations with others, being harmonious with them, means the influence we have on them will be positive. And this fulfills the purpose of our training. Then thank you. We can conclude there for this evening. Thank you.